has been said about Juma the man. Maybe Juma the legend or Juma the doctor. A lot has not been said about that, but let me just for the benefit wa ruhusa ya wale ambao labda kwa mara yao ya kwanza kutembea katika mikutano yetu waweze kuelewa or for them to understand who Juma the man is. I grew up in Majengo, and many of you know that already, and I went to school. There are photos here, by the way, to prove that I went to school. I went to school in Muslim primary school next to the mosque, and Chania High School for my KCSE. KCP nilikuwa class 8. Nowadays I don't know what they are called. We are getting old. We don't know what CBC is all about. But after that, I stayed for a while enjoying the work of Red Cross, where Alex and myself, Joro and a team of other people met there as young, confused people who had no idea what they wanted to do in life. And so while there, we were thinking, what do we want to do in life? While we were at that, we also got an opportunity to mentor some other young, confused people who are also here. I don't know whether they are confused anymore. We engaged, of course, in a lot of community work. In Bomb Blast when it happened, in El Nino, in La Nina, and so on and so forth. This journey of the Red Cross shaped us. This journey of the Red Cross managed to shape the kind of people that we finally would become. And in fact, I confess all the time and say that my journey for community service made me realize what my purpose in life was all about. Before then, I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. But through service to community, through responding to those disasters and those calamities and serving people, that is how we found our purpose in life. Many people spend time looking for their purpose, but generations are defined by, or they are given three kinds of things. They are given time for us to spend and for us to become better and for us to do something better with ourselves. Generations are also given work that they can be able to do to uplift themselves and to do something about their lives, but they're also given a purpose, which we must find for ourselves. Lazima tutafute purpose yetu ni gani. However, even as we are talking about what generations are given, we are also defined, or societies, communities are defined by three categories of people. How we treat and how we behave under these categories of people, and if you are in that category, you need to know if you behave in that manner. That's what defines societies, it defines communities, it defines the kind of things that nations become. The first category of people are the educated. How we get educated, what we do with our education, and how we utilize our education will actually define what kind of a community, what kind of a society we finally begin or we finally have. Because we have so many people who are educated, and today we have people who the education background is being questioned. Why are we questioning? Why should we have a court of law to decide whether you're educated or whether you have a degree or not? If you ever need a court of law to determine whether you have a degree, then most likely you don't have it. Because if you had it, you wouldn't be going to ask people to make others believe that you have it. But I'm not talking about any person. I'm saying communities will be defined by the people they educate. So in what way are we educated? How are we utilizing our education? Are we using it to ask people or to educate people to more information and to more action and to more determination and to more productivity, or what exactly are we doing? The second category of people that defines our generations are the resourced people. And resources doesn't necessarily mean money, but money is part of that aspect. You have money, what exactly are you doing with your money? You have ideas, what are you doing with these ideas? You have networks, what are you doing with these networks? Have you stood and decided and taken a stand to say that this is the direction in which we will move, or this is the person in which we are going to support, or this is the cause for which I'm willing to go full length for? Are we? Because if you have resources, money, you have networks, and you have ideas, and you have not utilized them towards the growth of your generation, then you're doing disservice to your generation. The third category of people that are going to define communities are the leaders we elect, and the leaders that present themselves for elections, and the leaders that we choose, whether it is in our churches, whether it is in our communities, whether it is at home. Because that leader will define how the resources will be utilized. That leader will define how that education will be implemented. Because the last person is more important than the first two. But the first two necessarily do not give rise to the last person. But we need to ask ourselves, what kind of leaders do we want? And Shiko said something here and said, we must be intentional about knowing what we want. What is it that we want? Because until you define what you want, you cannot know how you will get it, and you cannot know who will take you there. They say that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So you just take any road. We cannot just take any leader. It is not right, it is not possible. Now, those three categories of people, find leaders that are going to serve well in society. Find leaders that are going to be able to utilize the time and the resources that are available. Find leaders who are going to make you proud to say that this is my MP, this is my MCA, this is my governor, this is my president. We elect people sometimes that we are afraid or ashamed of saying we come from Kiambu County or we come from this county. Because you'll be asked, oh, hii ndio watu wale wa, and you don't want to be asked that kind of a question. So let's find these leaders. Even though this path is going to be lonely, let us travel that path. And let us make a determination that this is the destination that we want to go. Today was a day to discuss about the agenda, but this agenda has been discussed in a lot of forums. But this agenda first is premised or is held by 4 pillars that you can see in these banners that continue to guide the kind of person that wants to be your MP or the kind of person that is seeking your vote to be your MP. And the first pillar to me that has no compromise at all is the issue of integrity. Exactly what are we doing towards ensuring we have leaders with integrity? Are we people of integrity? Integrity to me is a value that I hold so close that even if every other thing was to be moved, then integrity will remain standing in the same shape. My education can go wherever. Every other aspect about me can go, but not the integrity that holds you together. Once someone was asked, a CEO, what he looks for in employees, and he said, I look for people with skills. I look for people with drive, but most importantly, I look for people with integrity. If they don't have the first two, it's okay, I will hire them, as long as they have integrity. So ask yourself if those people presenting themselves to you are people of integrity, or are people that you'd be proud saying that these people represent me. Because the second thing then is on issue to do with dignity. And dignity is not just to your opponent, but also to the people that you want to serve. Because the moment we start insulting each other, the moment we start throwing stones, the moment we start throwing words at each other, then we are indignifying the very people that we want to lead. What makes us think that through that there is any difference between us and any other creature that was created in this world? Because dignity is what separates you from the animals that we have. We must be able to serve people with dignity. We must be able to utilize the resources that they bestow upon us with dignity. We must be able to do all this, not just to our opponents, but also to our people. Because the third value that guides is a value of respect. If you do not respect people, don't expect to be respected. And I've shared this with a lot of people in most of my meetings, and sometimes my opponents have come to meetings or to places where I am. You may have seen in social media one time during our Eid prayers that the governor, current governor of Kiambu came and my opponent for the seat of MP also came. Respect demands that akiwa amekuja mgeni, mpe heshima yake, na heshima ya mgeni ni kumpatia nafasi ya kuweza kuzungumza yale ambayo amefanya yamemleta. Sasa nimealika wageni wangu Jaku na nimealika wageni wangu Carlos. Niwaalike alafu wakuje wakae hapo tu, siwapatie heshima yao ya kuja kuzungumza. So I was given the opportunity to be the MC of that event. Of course, as a candidate, I would have said they will not speak. And it was a Muslim function anyway, and I would have dictated any way. But I had to give them the opportunity to be able to speak. Because sometimes you may think that you have the best agenda for your people, even being a Muslim. Then you realize that the other person, even though they are not from your religion, they have a better, an even better idea of how to protect and preserve certain kinds of things about you, and you did not know, you know. So you give that opportunity for them to be able to understand what kind of people are here to talk to them. Now, that to me is respect. I will not insult them. I will not throw words at them. I will not disrupt their meetings. And Shiko was right when I said we will not engage in insults with them. Because if we do, no one will notice the difference. Yeah. Now we have two people who are constantly fighting each other. We now know the difference. Not between the two of them, that is one category. But the difference between them and how mature politics is supposed to be conducted. The last thing is the spirit of service. This has guided me, of course, in a lot of things. I do sometimes things in places I am that I'm not even supposed to be doing them in the first place. Because maybe the position I'm holding is higher, it demands that I don't do those things, but I do them anyway. I will do them because that is the spirit that I have of doing service, of becoming better, of making it better for the people that I'm serving, or for the people that are expecting our services. Now, with all these values, 4 of them, they will stand as pillars to the 5 points that were rolling here on this presentation. And my brother Ali has spoken very well the issue of education. People have come and told us that they have done so well, or they used to do so well in education. And if you ask them how well did you do, they will say, I used to distribute bursaries. You are supposed to distribute bursaries. I mean, it's just like saying that you move from class 1 to class 2. You're supposed to move to class 2. You're not supposed to be staying in class 1. Why are you telling us things that you're already supposed to be doing, that you gave bursaries? The law dictates 25% of CDF must be given as bursaries. So why would we be clapping for you for doing what the law says you should do? Yeah? And it is your right also to get bursary. So you should not be clapping for me for issuing bursaries. Now, education is not just about bursaries, because people talk about bursaries a lot. But my agenda, when education is concerned, is on 3 areas. One, we are asking ourselves the question on the legal and the policy framework of education. How is our legal and policy framework framed, or how is it stated? One, you will realize that in the compounds for primaries, we have ECD classes there. However, ECD is a program of the county government. The national government's program is the primary level part of it. How did we organize our policy of education in that manner? That an MP can come and construct or rehabilitate classes beginning from class 1 up to class 8 and fail to touch the ECD class there, because that is somebody else's work. That a county can come and do only the ECD class and fail to do any other thing that is there, while this compound is just the same. How do you separate your children and say that these are children of a lesser father or a lesser mother, and these are the children that I'll be looking after? It does not make sense. And this is policy framework that must change. It needs to change. The other framework that must change is how we have been looking at our education. And we are looking at our education in terms of infrastructure, because that's the second thing. Infrastructure not just in maintaining the kind of infrastructure that we have, but infrastructure in creating new infrastructure. Over the last more than 18 years, there has been no new school that has been built in Thika. None. And I'm talking about primary school. I'm not talking about secondary schools. Because most secondary schools today, they are day schools. They have been built on the same land that primary school has. If you go to QRS, there's a secondary school there. If you go to Broadway, of course, the land was an extension of Garissa, New Garissa Primary School. This Broadway school was created as a creation of Broadway Bakery, a company that deals with bread in here. So it was not an initiative of any sitting member of parliament or any leader for that matter. These are some of the things that get sometimes people worked up. How is it that between Kameno Primary School, the next school that you'll find is Mountain View? What are you doing with the population that is in between Kisii, in between phase 4 moving downwards? What are you doing with this population? What are you doing with the population that is between phase 4 and phase 13? There is no public primary school in there, because in between there, the next school is in General Cargo, or the next school is in Kiandutu New Garissa School. How is it that we can have form without having substance? We have form of kind of leadership, but then we have no substance within any kind of this form. Where do Kisii people take their children? That's how we get accidents along, carrying children. That's how we are ferrying children from one corner of town to the next corner of town, while all we can do is put up a school that these people can be able to access. It's as simple as that. That when you move from Mountain View, the next school is Gatuanyaga Primary School. Where is this other population of Salama, the other population of landless on the other side, Langata, and so on and so on? Where do they take their kids to school? There is a direct relationship between the failure of public institution and the quality of life that we live. This failure is parents will be forced to take their kids to private schools. Those private schools will consume a lot of your money. Disposable income that you're supposed to do other things will be consumed by private schools. That's not just some schools, but hospitals too. Between Kiandutu Hospital, the next hospital is level 3 in Makongeni, Pale Sokoni, next to St. Mulumba Church. What do we do about the population that is in between? And between that level 4, the next hospital is in Monyo, level 3, I think, hospital. What do you do with the rest of the population when they are getting sick? However, between Kiandutu and Makongeni, you barely walk 100 meters before you find a private hospital. There are so many of them. If I asked you to mention them, you will, before you even reach Makongeni, you have like 10, 15 of them. Anytime private institutions are coming up, then you need to know a public service is failing. And it fails and makes you pay for it. And you're paying for it because you have to now take your kids to a private school, you have to go to a private hospital, you have to do all these manner of things because failure of a public entity results into business in private entity. That's how we are poor. That's why we are not having disposable income. That's how we cannot be able to do much, because a lot of our income is consumed in consumables. Forget about the cost of food, forget about the cost of electricity or any other cost that is associated. When you look at those two things alone, they take up most of expenses. Now, what do we need to do? Health, yes, is a devolved function, but nothing stops an MP from knocking on the door of the governor to ask the governor to be able to provide something or to team up and do something for the community. Nothing stops it. Yeah. Nothing stops any leader from doing anything, but what we have is a failure of leadership that seeks to compete instead of complementing each other in services to the people. And that's why we are where we are today. Now, on education I can speak and speak and speak until kingdom come, but other than infrastructure, we are also looking at issues to do with mentorship and motivation of teachers, and so that we can be able to produce the kind of quality education that is required. Do the much infrastructure you have, but if you're not motivating, if you're not mentoring, if you're not exposing the teachers and the people who are supposed to take care of the education institution, then there's nowhere we're going. The second thing is on mentorship on the agenda. And we're talking about training, we're talking about empowerment, we're talking about making the agenda of young people at the center. And I don't need to belabor on this point any more than I have already been doing over the years. For more than 16 years in Red Cross and after Red Cross, I have only had one program with me that has been mentorship of the youth and mentorship of people in general, so that we can be able to begin to produce the kind of generation that we require in this country. But one person doing that is not enough. We need a bigger voice, and that is why I'm running for this office, because of that bigger voice. The third thing is the question on how do we include people who historically have felt excluded from government, excluded from decision making, and excluded from places where they can be able to air their issues. How do we bring about all these issues? You know, because if you have never been sidelined, discriminated, or felt like you're part of people that are not supposed to do much, then you have no understanding as to how this feels. But we have so many people who live in Thika. They may not come from dominant communities or dominant religions, but these people are ours anyway. We must take care of them. The fourth thing is, of course, issues to do with increased infrastructure. And in that, there are issues to do with security and so on and so forth. This, I will not take longer than I have with just mentioning them. However, we have a bigger critical issue. When you deal with insecurity issues, you have to ask yourself, are you dealing with the symptoms or are you dealing with the causes? But what is the biggest cause of these insecurities that are happening? Unemployment, hopelessness, lack of education. People don't have school fees to take their kids to school. People don't have a hope in life. We need to begin to restore this hope in people. We need to begin to do what ordinarily big organizations started as. They started as cottage industry. And that's the term that is used in here. Cottage industry is any small thing that can be started in your home, whether it is doing soaps, whether it is doing detergents, whether it is doing small-time manufacturing, whether it is doing packaging or labeling of packaging, or any one of those things that can be done without you necessarily incurring a lot of costs in startups, a lot of costs in expansion. That's what cottage industry is all about. Every company that has grown to be as big as Facebook, as big as Dell, as big as IBM, every one of these started as a cottage industry, somewhere in a room. Now that's the area that we need to begin to focus. And I'm through with my agenda. My agenda is here. Has not been printed anywhere. But today I want to make you angry, because you need to be angry to take action. It is not right that certain populations have to go without access to schools and we are just seated and relaxed. It is not right that we can begin to discuss now an agenda of people who took resources meant for agriculture and farmers and took away their lands and their savings and every one of these things. It's not right that we're even discussing on possibilities of these people taking care of your 137 billion shillings in terms of CDF. It is not right that while other places are finding the best amongst themselves and electing or nominating the best amongst themselves, all we can settle on is anything going by. It is not right. It is actually a reflection of our mental degradation. You know, we are regressing instead of progressing. We must not regress. We must constantly be on the move to look who is the best amongst us that can be able to represent us and articulate our issues out there. It is not right that today, due to poverty and other things, the most that people can be able to do is to say whoever brings us 50 shillings is the person that we shall elect. It is not right, because you guys who are seated here are part of the educated lot that I said you shape generations. We must use our education. lazima tutumie elimu ile ambayo tumepewa. Lazima tujiulize maswali magumu ya kujiuliza ni nini tunataka kufanya na watu. It is not right in a constituency that has 98-99% literacy rates that all we can settle for are people with questionable education issues. It is not right. That is why my slogan is, we take Thika seriously. We must take Thika seriously. We must not joke about this town. Because while some think that this is a place where they can come and take a seat and go away with it, we must know that this is home to many of us. We call this place home. Hatuna ngesha ingine. While people think that this is a place to come and take resources and ship them elsewhere, we must remind them that these resources are not supposed to be exported. Because anytime you're importing leadership, you're exporting resources and you're exporting opportunities. We must remind them that the reason why you walk Komitaa and find people on drugs and hopelessness is because of those 50 shillings that people are given. And it's because we brought in people who have no social connection whatsoever with your society. And if that happens, then you must blame yourself. Because this election is not about me. It's not about Juma Hemedi. If it was about Juma Hemedi, I would not be in this race. But I'm in this race because this election is about us. Our collective possibilities, our collective imagination, our collective rise, and our collective focus to be able to transform this constituency. If we cannot say the word our or we, then this election is not about us. Every one of us must feel involved. Every one of us must put their hands on deck. We are now at a critical stage, 39 days to. In this stage, it is not mzee ametuambia heka hida hedi ya iderona hedi ya kahedi meruka. This is that time. Because if anything is to be done, it must be done now, and it must be done by you. There's no other person. So get your act together. Get those networks that I talked about that defines generations. Get anything that you need to be gotten so that we can be able to drive this agenda home. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. When this election is over and the winner is announced, if that winner is not Juma Hemedi, Juma Hemedi has the grace and the honor of accepting whoever has taken that seat in a competitive manner. Congratulate that person, shake hands, and wish that person the best, and continue to support the activities of Thika. I will not be able to implement the agendas that I have mentioned, but we are going to hope that whoever comes in does that. Now, it is just an opportunity for us to look forth and do what the dreams of our fathers was and the hopes of the future generations in this town. Because mine is not about Juma, it's about the generations that we are talking about today. It is about what we can do collectively together. When the elections are announced, and I know they will be announced, I have no doubt in my mind that that announcement will be that Juma Hemedi is your MP for Thika Town constituency. I will still need you to help me implement this agenda. The same way I'm saying I need you guys to begin this journey, I need you to help implement this agenda. Because this agenda will not be a burden that I will carry alone. We must carry this burden, all of us. We must pull every string and make sure that we implement every kind of program that we have set out to make. And I have no reason to come back to you again in 2027 to ask you to give me a second term. This I have to keep repeating. Because I don't believe I'm the best there is in Thika and that I should be constantly be coming for the election. I believe that people like Carlos can rise and take up the mantle. I believe people like Jaku can be able to rise and be able to hold on to this kind of dream and take up the mantle and push it forward for another 5 years. I believe that if we give ourselves that opportunity to do what is required of us, then all of us are going to be happy because this nation is depending upon us. Thika is looking up to us. We must rise, and we have no excuse whatsoever. We have made some progress in this town. This progress has been evident since the year 2017. This progress has been made bit by bit, some painfully, some has made whoever was there to be able to go back into historical, to bring things to where they are. To deny us this progress, this hard-won progress, will be to deny us the collective identity and to deny us the opportunity to be better. We cannot go back, we can only march forward. There are no two ways about this. So if you will walk with me, if you will march with me, if you do what we must do, then I have no doubt that we will carry this seat and we will take this victory home. May God bless you. May God bless us. Thank you very much. I think a lot has been said about Juma the man. Maybe Juma the legend or Juma the doctor. A lot has not been said about that, but let me just, for the benefit wa ruhusa ya wale ambao labda kwa mara yao ya kwanza kutembea katika mikutano yetu waweze kuelewa, or for them to understand who Juma the man is. I grew up in Majengo, and many of you know that already, and I went to school. There are photos here, by the way, to prove that I went to school. I went to school in Muslim primary school next to the mosque, and Chania High School for my KCPE. KCPE nilikuwa class 8. Nowadays I don't know what they are called. We are getting old. We don't know what CBC is all about. But after that, I stayed for a while and joined the work of Red Cross, where